So it's nighttime in Copenhagen and the negotiations are still going on. Rumor has it that they'll be going on till early in the morning. The negotiations here are still in crisis. We seem to have gotten through some major procedural problems. So some say that there's a glimmer that we're getting back on track. There's some texts that have been decided. There's some working groups that have been formed. But probably there are two big pieces of news today from the negotiations. One is that Senator Hillary Clinton was here and she put $100 billion on the table for developing countries. So the idea is that this money would be able to help developing countries move past the fossil fuel economy and help to generate clean energy and clean technology. A lot of people are saying that this is a breakthrough, that this is the first time we've heard serious money on the table. Others are saying that it's only half of what's going to be required to really get us out of this mess. But definitely it was something new today. And, you know, the really big news is that we got a leaked annex out of the negotiations. So this is a document that looks at the proposals from developed countries and analyzes their targets and what it would mean. You know, what that means for the planet if we do what they're describing. And what the document showed was that basically if this is all we get, these targets that are currently on the table, then that'll mean that we're looking at a rise of temperature of 3 degrees. It'll mean that, according to the document, global emissions will remain on an unsustainable pathway equal or above 550 parts per million. So not good news. If you look at the International Panel on Climate Change reports, you see that 3 degrees means massive flooding in parts of the world, it means droughts in others, and there's no question that it means a huge decline in food supplies and a dramatic rise in violent storms. So it's not enough to stem catastrophic climate change, so they're still at the table. Earlier tonight, I had a special guest from the Canadian Youth Climate Delegation, and Jasmeet told us what she would do if she was Prime Minister.
I believe any Prime Minister needs to represent the will of Canadians, and I know before coming to Copenhagen there was a poll done here that 75% of Canadians want to do more on climate change. So something that I would do is reflect that, the will to do more on climate change. So the number one thing that I would do is shut down the tar sands. I feel that they are causing a lot of chaos and sickness in a lot of Indigenous communities around there, and I think if we were to shut down the tar sands and provide a just transition for workers to be able to move on to cleaner jobs and a cleaner economy, and to scale up our investments in renewable energy and our targets to fit in line with the scientific recommendations of 25 to 40% below 1990 levels and not 2006 levels like we're currently doing, is something that I would do.
Well, you know, that's really interesting because you are directly in line with George Monbiot, who I think everyone knows. I had coffee with him today and I said to him, what's it going to take to really solve this thing? And he said, we need a global campaign to keep fossil fuels in the ground.
Yeah,
so, that's interesting because that's what you're saying too. So can you also tell us, what have you been doing here in Copenhagen and what is the Canadian Youth Delegation all about?
Sure, so I'm here as part of the Canadian Youth Delegation, which is made up of a team of the most 30 fantastically amazing students across Canada. And basically, we're here because we feel like this is our future being negotiated. In 2050, a lot of these negotiators aren't going to be here, but we will be still here in Canada. We'll still, have our children, we'll have jobs, and we just feel like right now our voices are not being heard in the negotiating process, and this is our future. So we need to be here to let our Canadian government know that we are representative of many youth and many people from across Canada, and that this is what we want to see. We want to see a future of clean jobs. We want to see a future without tar sands. We want to see a future where Canadians can be proud of the role that the Canadian government is playing here.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
So again, what is Canada's role in these negotiations? Prime Minister Harper is now here. And if we are going to reach an agreement here in Copenhagen, it's going to require the Prime Minister to raise his level of ambition, to say that Canada is going to be willing to have stronger global warming pollution cuts. It's going to mean that we're willing to put more money on the table, and we'll see what he and the minister say tonight and do tomorrow. But tonight, I'm going to let General Wesley Clark have the last word. Many of you know him because he is the general in the United States that has spoken out against security risks of climate change. He really changed the frame in the United States, and I had the opportunity to be on a panel with him. As soon as that panel's online, we'll put a link for you. But here's what General Wesley said today. If the science is right, and I believe it is, the problems will become increasingly severe. We'll have to get a grip. And the question is, will we do it soon enough?